What is up, team, and welcome back to another production brought to you by Comfort in Chaos. Thank you guys for tapping in this channel. I always tell you guys, by you clicking on this, you already know it's going to be a story, it's going to be an adventure, and you already know you're showing a form of presence. And like I always tell you guys, there's power in presence, guys, in multiple forms. So thank you guys for tapping this in. But this one's going to be a special series, a little bit different. But you know what? I'm going to pass it over to my pal here, Will, and he's going to bring you in.
Brothers and sisters, I want to specifically welcome everybody to the Comfort and Chaos, right? This is a very special episode. This is a very special series we got coming in for you, right? We have dubbed it the Dead Drop, all right? And for the uninitiated, the Dead Drop is a method of spycraft that is used to pass items or information between individuals using a secret location. This is our secret location, all right? We're going to pass some information, right? So by avoiding the direct personal meetings, an individual can maintain operational security. Spies and their handlers have been known to perform dead drops using various techniques to hide items such as monies, secrets, or instructions. And then to signal that drop that it has been made. Here, we are going to drop to you some amazing stories, interviews with some absolutely fascinating people, to keep you informed and entertained. All right. And with that, let me bring back in the founder of Comfort and Chaos, the one, the only Mr. Vato. How you doing today, brother?
Oh, dude, that was solid, man. That was solid. Hey, guys, look it up. If you don't know what dead drop is, you can look it up. You can literally put it up in Google. It has a really cool meaning, and it's really cool when you think back to those cloak and dagger days. You know, that's actually pretty cool, man. That was a good intro, dude.
Thanks,
You
brother.
got me pretty excited. Now,
I know I'm super excited.
I'm excited too, and I'm excited.
Look at these nipples.
I'm really excited. One, not only for that fancy blazer you're wearing, and I'm sure you got those Ranger panties, right?
Dude, I didn't even do Ranger panties today. Normally it's just the jacket and Ranger panties.
Oh, really?
But for our guest, I wore pants.
Oh,
Because this fucking man deserves pants, goddammit.
I agree. Hey, you know what? I'm wearing pants today too, team. All right? I'm wearing pants today too. All right? Now, explain to who we have here, because I'm pretty sure the team's wondering, who is this other gentleman on the screen right now?
Right.
You know, and
right.
why am I not standing at parade rest?
Yeah.
You know? And then why is there a Marine flag in the back? You know, there's so many questions I'm sure that there are answering on right now, you know. So, Will, go ahead. Take it away. Introduce this gentleman.
Yeah, let's get to the drop. All right, so I couldn't think of a better person to kick off this series. Right, this is a man who has been serving his country and his community since 1989. Right, he's a humble man who shakes off everyone around him who constantly calls him a fucking hero. All right, he's a soldier, a man who, by the law of surprise, owns property and a summer home in Afghanistan.
Ooh,
all right,
let's go. I think that's a CI concern.
He is the founder of the John Melson School for people who can't shoot good.
Ooh.
He is John Mad Dog Melson. John, great to have you on here today, brother.
Hey, I appreciate you guys asking me to come on. This is awesome. Thank you.
Hell yeah, man. Welcome, John. Welcome indeed. It's a pleasure to have you here as we launch this Dead Drop series, and it definitely is an honor, I would say. You know, I've read up on you. I got the information talking with Will. It's I got to say, man, it's you are the NCO of NCOs. Let's just put it that way. You know, let's just put it that way.
Fact. So,
well, I'll tell you the same thing I tell everybody else, man. Like, I'm good at push-ups. That's my thing. I'm good at push-ups.
That's the secret, huh?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I like
there's
that.
a lot more to John than that, and I'm going to go over his resume here in a second, just to prove that. Exactly.
We got to hear that. We got to hear that.
I got the resume.
Send it.
So, Sergeant Major John Nelson currently serves as the Operations Sergeant Major for the 1st of the 54th Security Force Assistance Battalion, and as the Senior Enlisted Technical Advisor to Army Futures Command, and specifically under the Soldier Lethality Cross-Functional Team and the Army National Guard rep at Fort Moore, Georgia. So Sergeant Major Melson first enlisted from Massachusetts into the United States Marine Corps in June of 1989. He deployed to Desert Storm He left the Corps in 1992 to support his mother, who was diagnosed with cancer. He joined the Boston PD while wrestling with some major demons after some of that stuff, right? He served 3.5 years in prison.
Wow.
And in 2001, you lose some friends during 9/11. You try to get back in the Corps, try to get back in the fight. They find out you have a tumor, and basically try to DQ you from service. But that's not going to stop John Melson. So after surgery and treatment, he finds a way to get into the fight with the National Guard in 2004. As an 11 Bravo, he served at Massachusetts, Mississippi, Texas, and Georgia Guard. Has 9 combat deployments, serving in Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Freedom Sentinel, Operation Spartan Shield. I got too many pieces of paper in front of me. His awards include Bronze Star with Valor device, 5 oak leaf clusters.
That's a really big deal, team, in case you didn't know.
So that's what, 6 Bronze Stars or 5 total, John?
Jeez.
5 total.
5 total. Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal with oak leaf cluster, 2 Purple Hearts, Army Commendation with Valor and 4 oak leaf clusters, ARCOM with silver oak leaf cluster, Army Achievement Medal, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals. You have a Ranger tab, a Sapper tab, a Jungle tab, Combat Infantry badge, Expert Infantry badge, Pathfinder, Airborne, Air Assault. We got to fucking talk about what the fuck a Ram's Head badge is.
I got a question on that one too.
Basic Instructor qualified. You have 2 sets of foreign jump wings, Salvador, Peruvian. You have the German Schützenschneider badge. And you have your Bachelor of Arts in Leadership Workforce Development from the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College.
Wow. Jeez,
all right.
Man.
God damn it, John.
Jeez.
I've been busy.
You might have been busy over the years.
A lot of push-ups, right?
Lots of, but you're only good at push-ups, right?
That's it.
No, I don't think so.
So John, I mean, after hearing all that, and the team, I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers, are probably asking the same thing. And it's like, dude, where does all that come from? Like seriously, there's got to be something inside. There's got to be a story to literally all of that, and that's kind of what I want to dive into that, So, I mean, if you want, you can take us, what was your upbringing like? What led you to aspire to, I mean, I hear something like that and I'm thinking like, dude, all right, how did this guy grow up? What kind of man was he?
All right. So, well, let me start off. I really appreciate you, talking me up. But you got to serve with me in class, and you see, I'm like everybody else, right? Like I said, but I could do a lot of push-ups, right? That's my claim to fame, right? But just a correction, I served during Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I didn't end up getting deployed then.
Gotcha.
Right, but I was in the Marine Corps active duty during that time.
Okay.
That was the only thing. I served during that era. I just wasn't able to go over and participate. Right. But as far as
we beat them, what we beat them in like 96 hours. If John Melson was there, it's 7. They were saving you up for the later wars, John.
Right. So, how I grew up. I grew up in the city of Boston, a section of the city called Hyde Park, West Roxbury area. I grew up there. My 2 uncles on my mother's side of the family, and uncle on my biological father's family, grandfather had served in the service in some capacity. I was really close to my mom's 2 uncles, and they had both served in the Marine Corps. So when I was just a little kid, like 10, 11, 12 years old, they'd come home on leave, one station Okinawa, one was at Cherry Point. They go out on a med float or a 6-month pump to Southeast Asia. And they'd come back, and I'd hear all the stories. But and I was always interested, like, man, they got these great experiences and everything, right? But what was even more appealing to me, they were jacked. They were in such great shape. So here I am at 12 years old, and I'm looking at these guys that come home and they put on their greens or their dress blues, and I'm like, they got traps up to their ears, they're jacked, and they're out running in combat boots, and I was like, wow, these guys are like warriors, right? Like, so like I would see that, and I'm like, man, they were great, and they were known in the area of the city. They were known for being fantastic hockey. I grew up playing ice hockey. Okay. So I was like kind of following their footsteps. And I was going away in the summers to like hockey camps and everything. And I had it set in my head. I wanted to go pro. I want to do whatever it takes to go pro. Like, so I would rollerblade several miles with my hockey gear on my back to get to the rink, to skate for hours. And then I would stay there all day until like midnight, until the rink would close. They had kicked me out. So I was what they consider a rink rat. I would just sit around, and when teams didn't have enough people to play, I'd be like, hey, can I skate with you guys? And I'd jump on. So like my cardio was through the roof. Like my cardio was on point. Man. But I was a skeleton. Because I wasn't stopping to eat. I was just constantly playing hockey.
Yeah.
High school came. My mom moved to a new town. We moved from Hyde Park over to Milton, which is just outside the city of Boston, city limits. Very, very well off. We were very low income. And so I didn't really hang around with too many of those kids. It was just too embarrassing. Like, they had all like designer clothes, everything. I'm walking around sweatpants and like hospital clothes, right? Whatever, right? And my mom did the best she could do, right? And so living like that, and I kept thinking like, I'm gonna go pro. I'm gonna go pro. I didn't want to hear about, hey, you need to get a job. Hey, what are you gonna do for college? I was like, no, they're gonna come get me. Yeah. I'm the next Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, I was way off. I was way off. I was the best hockey player in my own mind, right? And so it came down to graduating high school, and the Marine Corps recruiter, Sergeant Perlman, I'll never forget him. He was relentless, always contacting. And then finally one day he contacted me, and I was like, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm only 16 and you keep calling me. And he was like freaked out. He was like, what? I thought, look at your school records. I'm like, no, those are wrong. I'm only 16. So he left me alone for a few months. Right. And next thing I know, it's yeah, right. It didn't last long. Not with my mother. Right. So it come around to like mid-May, end of May, we're getting close to graduation. And I come home from school one day, and I walk in the front door, and my mother's like, oh, there's someone here to see you. There's no car out in front of the house or anything. So I'm thinking like, who the fuck's here to see me? There's no car outside. Like, who's here to see me? So I'm like, oh, come on in the kitchen. So I walk in, it's a hallway. As I turn the corner and I look, it's fucking Sergeant Perlman in my kitchen. And he's got like the folder and paper out and everything. He's like, oh, hello, John. Oh, you brought jokes, don't you? You think this is funny? 16 years old. And my mother like gives me a dope slap in the back of the head. And he's like, why don't we sit down and discuss, what the Marine Corps has to offer you? And I looked at my mother. I'm like, how did he get here? She goes, I told him to come here. And I'm like, she's like, you didn't get into college. You don't have a job. My son's not going to be a bum. She's like, you can go in the Marine Corps until you figure out what you're going to do in life, but you're not going to stay here and be a bum.
Oh, wow. And
I fucking hated her for that. I went to basic training, got sent off. John, Paris Island.
So like, tell me about like school for you, right? Like, how are your grades, right? I mean, obviously, right, the Corps, the military in general, right, is going to instill that level of discipline. Were you already kind of like buttoned down for that kind of like level of discipline, or was it like, and you have the same origin story that, kind of in general that so many of us have, right? Grew up, hey, kind of poor, right? Family in the military, you see it, right? You get that idea, right? Kind of in your head, from a young age, and you're like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like, okay, like I see what it does to those people, right?
Yeah,
I see
like
what they
go out and
become. I
earn
see
it,
that attitude. I see, right? Just how you carry yourself becomes completely different. But like, so how was school? Like, were you right playing hockey? Were you the only guy to hold records of most time in penalty box and take off a skate and try and stab somebody? Or was it like how did that go for you, man?
So hockey was great. So it it kept me off. I don't want to sound like like I'm ghetto or anything, but it kept me off the streets.
Yeah.
Right. Like if my family ever was like, he's not at home, they just drive to the rink, and then I'd be sitting in there trying to get a chance to get out back on the ice. Right. And a lot of my friends were the same way. So that was birds of a feather flock together. Right. So we didn't get wrapped up with drugs. We didn't get wrapped up in any of the other knuckleheaded stuff that kids can get caught up in, especially living in the city. But as far as my grades, they weren't fabulous. Right. I wasn't failing, but all day long I'd be sitting in class, couldn't wait to get to the fucking skating rink in the afternoon. Yeah. So it was like, I'm going to sit here in class. I'm going to give the teacher what they need so I can get out of here because I want to go skate. Right. So that was it. So, I was probably like a B, C average student, but that's without applying myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. That's because my motivation, my energy was focused elsewhere. Right. I didn't see myself like ever becoming a brain surgeon or working for NASA. I understood my attributes, my strengths are my physical being. Right. So pursuing to go be an athlete, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna be the next Wayne Gretzky. I'm gonna break records, right? No, but that's what it was, right? So like, we would hang out on the railroad tracks, sneak a keg up, get someone to buy for us, bring the keg, we'd drink it on the tracks. We get run from the cops, so we don't get arrested right? And it was actually the interactions we used to have with the police, with the Boston police back then. They catch you, put a boot in your ass, and tell you get out of here. Like, the worst thing that would ever happen in our upbringing wasn't that if you got arrested. The worst was if they brought you home.
They took you home.
Oh,
yeah, I was gonna fucking say it, man.
Because that was like that just pushed the family over the edge. Like, my mother would whip the shit out of me, then my grandmother would show up and hit me, smack me around, and now I got to deal with those big jack Marines because they're now they're out of the Marine Corps at that point. They show up now; they got to lay their whooping on me as well. And I was just like, man, I just don't want to have any interaction with police because the ass whooping never ends. It's continuous.
Yeah, I remember one time, dude, I got rolled up by the cops when I was young, and they were straight up like, "What's your parents' phone number?" And I was like, "They don't have a phone." And we didn't because we were poor. They were like, "Bullshit. What's your phone number?" I was like, "No, I legitimately don't have a phone." And my buddy goes, "No, like they're poor. They don't have a fucking phone." And they're like, "Okay, well, we got to take you home." I was like, "Nope. You can take me to fucking jail, bro." Like, I'm not, no, man, I'm safer in prison. Like, fuck you.
Right.
They were just like, holy shit. Like, oh, we'll just cut them loose. And I was like, okay, cool.
So that's pretty interesting. So it seems like you had one of those upbringings that it was just like, you always had something to strive for, and that was your focal point, like that's what it was, and obviously we learn more like you said before, because I know me personally, I wasn't a book nerd, I was that little kid who liked to go outside and play more than it was go inside and read a book. It was always hard for me to go and sit down and read a book. I'm like, dude, I need to be outside. Like, there's so much to do out there, But I also had kind of like a same upbringing too. I mean, my father, he was really hard on me coming up, and there was 6 of us, and I'm the oldest of 6. So as the firstborn, he was really, and there was no military in my family. I'm the first one. But my father was like, hey, there's 2 ways you're going to make it in this world. You either hit the books or you learn how to work. So you're not going to be a bum. That was his thing, and that upbringing has always stayed on my mind, and just push myself, find something to strive for and just push, Now to backtrack, so the recruiter went to your house, and is that basically what he had you sign, and then boom, when you signed that dotted line, and then you shipped out?
How long?
Yeah,
How
so
long after you graduated did mom say you got to get the fuck out?
Yeah.
Oh, so Sergeant Perlman was at my house like 2 or 3 days prior to graduation. Yeah. So my mother was like, "When you graduate,
Damn.
you're out of here."
Mom knew.
Right?
Mom knew.
Yeah.
Mom
Oh,
knew
she
what
knew. It was
John
like I had
Was he at your
if
graduation ceremony?
no, no. But that day that we and him sat down, we set up the timeline when I would have to come in and go to MEPS. Well, first off, I had to go in and take the ASVAB. Then I had to go to MEPS. I was enlisted. I was on I don't know if they still do it anymore, the delayed entry program.
Yep.
Yep.
So like I enlisted in like officially on the Marine Corps books in July, but then I left end of September for basic to go to Paris Island. So I was like, I'm gonna project it out, have my last summer to party, and that was fucking horrible. That was a bad choice. Like all it did was make me not want to leave even more.
Yep.
That's
Knowing
what it
like
always does to everybody.
life's gonna end. You're like, I'm getting closer. Like, oh no, it's coming, right? Versus just rip the scab off and get it over with, And then oh no, and then so my phone's getting down. Let me grab my power cord. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, you're good.
No,
man.
you're good, man. We'll pause right there.
All right.
We'll run a cut. No problem, man. That's the great thing about not being live.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Don't go taking that phone in the kitchen, John.
No.
We don't want you to lose connectivity, man. You had good connectivity where you were. Hey, we'll have to start a GoFundMe link in the bottom. Help John get Wi-Fi. We'll start that. I'll post that in YouTube.
Oh, you fucking
I'll
guys.
start a GoFundMe link. An American hero. Help an American hero get Wi-Fi.
Oh shit.
That's a short.
Yeah, do that. We're gonna clip that one out. That's absolutely gonna be a fucking thing.
Let's see. I got one of these like extra long fucking cords. Get plugged in here.
All right.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
All right.
All
And
right,
we're
my
back.
bad, guys.
And we're back. And just in case you're right, you didn't know, John is in an undisclosed location without any internet whatsoever. We're just assuming it's Army Futures Command, where they are trying to currently clone him.
Yeah, he's going over that Neuralink special military package study.
All right, so right, we're heading into the Corps now. Mom has basically said, "Get out." You party your ass off last summer. Were you East Coast or West Coast?
East Coast. Yeah,
East
Paris
Coast
Island.
Marine, Paris Island.
Yeah.
Which one's better?
Paris Island.
Well, there you go.
Hands down.
All right, so you go out to Paris Island. What did you originally enlist for? Was it also infantry?
No. So that's the other thing Sam Perlman got me on, right? But we got the ASVAB test results. He was like, "Wow, you did so well." This is how he sold it. You did so well, you can come in what we call an open contract, and I was like, "What's that mean?" He's like, "That means like any job that the Marine Corps needs, you got a good enough score to be in any of them."
That means you're about to get fucked.
Yes. So as I was going through boot camp, you start finding out stuff, and I'm like, "Oh no, I might end up being a cook. If the Marines need a cook, When I graduate, I'm going to be a fucking cook. No, this is not what I joined for. When I could have just been like, yep, make me infantry. But when my hopes were that he was selling me the idea I could go to aviation to do air traffic controller.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, open contract. You could end up getting it. Do really good at boot camp, but you could. I'm like, okay.
Dirty salesman.
Horrible. He got me in.
Got you.
And so I ended up. You don't find out. You go in open contract. You go through boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to Camp Geiger, which is Marine combat training, which is like a 30-day infantry course, right? Then every Marine goes through that, and then you go to your specialty. Well, that's also where they announce it. When you graduate from those 30 days, Marine combat training is when they tell you what your MOS is going to be. So they were like, they call my name, like Melson, 3531. And I'm like, 3531? Oh, fuck, I'm a machine gunner. And I was like, wait a minute. 0331 is a machine gunner. I'm like, what the fuck is 3531? They're like, you're a truck driver. I was like, oh.
They put you as a fucking truck driver.
Did they give you a good bonus at least?
No,
because I was open contract. They looked at it like you were lucky to. The Marine Corps looks at a lot of stuff about the Marine Corps. At least back then, they were like, "You're lucky to serve. You're lucky to be one of us."
Even when I joined, I talked to the Marines, and they were like, all the other services were like, "Hey, yeah, we'll promote you to E3. We'll give you this, we'll give you that." And when I talked to the Marines, they were like, "No. You get to be a Marine." And I was like, okay, cool. Thank you. Have a nice day. Yeah. I'm fucking out. Like, I'm going to go talk to the dude next door. You're out of your fucking mind.
You the proud.
Yeah. And so I got announced I was 3531. So I was at Camp Geiger. And then it was only a 10-minute, 15-minute drive to Camp Johnson, right? I go there. Then I'm there for, I forget how many months to learn how to drive a 5-ton, right? Ooh. But now this is what's crazy. The Marine Corps says I'm going to be a truck driver. I never had a driver's license. So they put me as a truck driver. I'm like, I don't even have a civilian driver's license. And like, well, you need to go get one. I'm like, what? This is so fucked up. I'm just like, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I got stationed at Camp. So Camp Geiger, Camp Johnson, and Camp Lejeune. It's like all part of like one big company. So I went from Geiger right down the road to Johnson, learn how to drive a 5-ton. From there, I went to Second Truck Company right at Camp Lejeune. It was like, bam, I never left there.
Jeez.
And then my mom had some problems during the end of my enlistment, some issues with cancer. Mm-hmm. And very fortunate, a lot of people, I hate the Army, I hate the Marine Corps, man. I guess it's all based on the individual's experience.
Yeah.
The Marine Corps was very good to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for a Master Sergeant Williams, old machine gunner in Vietnam. The skin on his back was melted from napalm. This guy was hard as nails, but he always would. He was hard on me. But then, out in front of everyone, he was hard on me. But then one-on-one, he'd tell me, he's like, you remind me of my son, and he was kind of like take me under his wing. And then when my mom was sick, he was like, hey, my wife works at Headquarters Marine Corps. We're going to try and assist you with a hardship transfer. And I spent my last year in the Marine Corps stationed up at Naval Air Base in South Weymouth, which was only 15, 20 minutes away from my house.
That's amazing.
And so the Marine Corps did that for me. And then I came up in the Marine Corps, we call it EAS. In the Army, we call it ETS, right?
Yep.
When I was coming up to my EAS, they were like, hey, listen, if you're going to stay in your last year, you have to go to Okinawa. But because of your mom's situation, we can let you out now. And I was just like, at that time, I was just in my early 20s. I was like, I'll take the early out.
Yeah, right.
Because for me, the Marine Corps, I went in the Marine Corps to all the male role models I saw in my life that had gone in the Marine Corps. They were very successful with post-service. Like they were in law enforcement, working for the government. So I was hoping I would just go with the flow of the river that way. Right. Yeah. I go to the Marine Corps, do that. I'm going to follow their footsteps. All I wanted to do was get on Boston PD. That was my dream job, to be on Boston Police Department. Right. And what I was referencing earlier, how the cops interacted with us when they would catch us drinking in the woods and at the parks and down on the tracks and stuff, is I was like, you know what? These guys could ruin, they have a lot of power where they could ruin these kids' lives, us, right?
Yeah.
Or they, put a good boot in our ass and we're going the right direction, right? And so it was like, I was like, man, I hope one day I could have a position like that and be able to influence people, in a positive way. So that's why I always wanted to, I went in the Marine Corps so I could try and get on the Boston Police. And I pursued that. So I was able to prove to myself I got what it takes to be like those role models I had, right? Like, do I have what it takes? Can I make it through parasilent, right? Can I be a Marine? And I did very well in the Marine Corps, right? Other than the issue helping my family situation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I got on the police department, and I had a blast. That was to this day I miss it. I hear the sirens, I see blue lights, and it goes. I just get this feeling up my spine. I'm just like, oh man, I miss it so much. Not because, it never was like a thing for me, like a rush to, like a high for me to go ahead and put handcuffs on people. Like I didn't really enjoy arresting people. I like keeping people safe. But what I did like about being on the police department is the ability, back then they called it community policing, right? But where you're out there and there's nobody over your shoulder telling you have to lock up Will, you have to arrest him right now. You're out there on your own, and you're like, hey, you know what? I don't have to arrest him right now.
Yeah.
But I could possibly take this moment and have some influence, and maybe it'll get his life squared away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does, man. And
I'm assuming you're also like embedded into a specific neighborhood, right? So you're learning the people, right? You know who that dude is, right? You know when it's time to go, okay, you know what? You need to go away for a minute, as opposed to, hey man, maybe you just need a little scare.
No, I totally agree, because I grew up in the same time. I grew up in a time where your officers, like the officers were so involved in the community that you just knew who was on patrol at that time. Like you knew the officer, as we were kids growing up, we knew, oh, that's Officer so-and-so. Oh yeah, he's on day shift, oh, or that's Officer so-and-so. He's on night shift. Like, and then they were there like, hey, what are you guys doing? Get home before I take over, and that was like a thing, and we looked up to them too. We respected them. They had that respect for the community, so yeah, I totally can relate. I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, I even on myself, I always told myself, man, when I get out of the Army, like, I wouldn't mind looking down this PD route too myself, just because you have that form of mentorship. You're in that position of mentorship and guidance, and you can apply yourself, in that aspect. So I totally understand where you're getting at from that transition from the Marine Corps, when you're getting that foundation of like, yo, this is what it's like to be a leader. This is what it's like to be in charge, when in charge, and
exactly all
those foundations that you had in the Marine Corps. And now you're like, hey, now I understand why these police officers were the way they were when I was a kid. I totally understand that. So I just couldn't imagine doing it in Boston, though. That's a big city. That's a big
city. That can be a rough city.
That's a rough city, too.
It is big, but actually the police department, man, I don't want to, the numbers, I think, so obviously it's a lot smaller city than New York City. Right?
Oh yeah.
But Boston PD, I think, I think maybe 13,000. That's probably being generous. How many police officers like are on the department? It's actually not a big department. If you did 20 years on the job, you've probably come across somebody a couple times through your career.
Sure.
Right. End up working together. But yeah, there was a lot of former military on the police department with me, especially in my class, my academy class. There was a whole lot of us because it was right after Desert Storm.
Oh yeah, right? I believe it.
And actually, I got a funny story. So I had a police recruit with me. So alphabetical orders. We sit in the classroom. So I'm in the back row, and the guy besides me, McCarthy. and I'm Melson, and McCarthy was an Army guy, right? He was in the Army,
Okay.
and I was in the Marines, right? So the two of us, there was a lot of banter that went on in there, like we're better than you, right? We always shit on the Navy guys.
I mean,
in the
that's
class,
how it
right?
works.
Navy
That
vets,
never goes
right?
away, you know.
Right. And so, this is back I got in 1995, end of 94. I was in the academy, and Joel McCarthy, I'll never forget him. He was one of my best friends in the academy. And we graduate the academy, and now I'm going to fast forward 2005. I'm in Iraq. I had been off the job. I was only on the job for a couple of years, right? And we'll dig into some stuff. I had to go on a fishing trip upstate for a little bit, and then, I get back in the service after some health and some legal issues, right? And I'm at BIOP. I'm transitioning. I'm just getting in theater. I'm with the Mississippi 155. I'm showing up in theater as an individual augmentee. I'm in the chow hall at BIOP, and I'm like, this chow hall is insane. They got like ice sculptures and there's fresh fruit all out there. And I'm like, this is bizarre. This is Iraq.
Force chow hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I look over at where the drinks are at the, you open the fridge, you get all the drinks, and there's Joel McCarthy. And I'm like, there's no way. And I walk up, and he's a chief warrant officer. And here I am, PFC. Actually, no, I just pinned E5, right? Like a month before. I walk up, and I'm like, hey, what the fuck are you doing here? And he turns around, and he's like, Melson, how are you here? And I was like, dude, this is crazy. We hadn't seen each other since 1996.
Wow.
And then we reunite in Baghdad at BIOP International Airport, right? At the Chow Hall in 2005. It was bizarre. And he was a Black Hawk pilot in the Army.
Oh, wow.
It's
Yeah.
such a small world, right? Like just the warfighter world, right? Like
Yeah.
the folks that you'll just come across and you're like, whoa, what the fuck? I haven't seen you in 20 years. Like, wow, holy shit.
Speaking of that, you talk about that, Will. You say that you haven't seen people in so long. Like I recently went home for my son's high school graduation, right? And I was home for a couple of days back in Boston. I don't go back to Boston much. It's different now, right?
Yeah.
So I'm there, and I'm running into a lot of people I used to hang around with and chum around with, right? And I'm like, oh my! Inside, I'm looking at him, I'm like, this guy looks like he's got one foot in the grave. He looks horrible.
Oh yeah.
Right? And the girls, they're overweight. They look worn out, right? But they're the same age as me. And I'm like, hey, it's nice to see you. You look great. How's things been going? Life's been good for you. But me, I'm lying. Every word out of my mouth, I'm lying. I'm like, these people look like death. And then what fucked me up was they gave the same response back to me. So I'm like, wait a minute. So you're telling me I look good? Oh, I know what this means. I'm like, oh, man, I just better stick to push-ups. Like, man. But I just thought that was funny to share that with you, my recent visit back home. But I did.
Considering you were trying to get on Men's Fitness a couple years ago while we were at the academy, I think you're fine, John. Like I've seen those pictures. I tried to find those pictures, by the way, so we could pull them up, and I couldn't find them. Those are very fucking deep, bro.
That'd be nice.
Those are off the internet somehow. I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you did that.
It's on the black web somewhere.
Yeah,
who knows?
For real.
They probably got some other like bodily parts imposed in the photos as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, now let me backtrack. So you just kind of so you basically got out, went into the PD, and then you went back into the Army.
Yes.
So that little gap there, what all? Because my understanding is like, so you served some time, and according to that intro that Will served, you served some time.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, if you're willing to share, I mean, I'm not trying to. I mean, I'm willing to listen to whatever you're willing to put out. So,
I have no problem talking about it. I've never denied I've made mistakes.
I mean,
right?
we all do. We all do. That's why. That's what this channel's about: comfort and chaos.
And so, not making any excuses, but back then, in my early 20s, it was kind of common for shit, at least in my peer group, the people in my circle, it was common for relationships to be rough.
Yeah.
Right. Like raising voices, and
I mean, it was a different time.
You don't talk for a few days. There's an argument,
yeah.
and then next you know they're back together, and it's like, man, And meanwhile, like the guys, they'd always talk shit. I'd never. Why would you let her talk to you like that, man? You good? She's gone. Don't ever go back to it. And like 2 days later, they're back together, all lovey dovey, right? And so, I think my life professionally was going well. I think I made some good decisions going into the Marine Corps. I got onto the Boston Police Department. I was doing very well in that aspect. But on the personal side, that relationship stuff, there was a lot of stuff that, knowing now, should have been some red flags. Mm-hmm. And I just, whether I noticed them with myself or with my partner. And, I just was going with the flow.
I got you.
Right?
And you're in your 20s, right?
You're young.
Yeah.
And
right. You're young. You're young. You're in a hyped up, right? You're coming out of the Corps. You're in a hyped up job position, right? Where the adrenaline goes, right? Like, there's a reason why, statistically, there's issues in those fields, right? Both in the military and policing, right? Any kind of first responder jobs, right? Like, especially with young guys, right? Where, hey man, like your brain is barely fully developed and you're trying to figure shit out. And, I mean, it's hard. It's hard. We were all knuckle fucking heads. Like we were talking the other day about bringing some folks on here from when I was a young NCO, and bringing my guys on here and having them tell some of the stories. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, I look back, it's like, fuck, I was a douchebag.
But yeah, I mean, there was a night between the girlfriend I had at the time, and we hadn't been talking, and we started talking. We separated, so she was staying somewhere else. We weren't living in the same house. She was staying in another apartment from where I was, and we were supposed to meet up that night. A friend of ours was graduating college. It was a graduation party. We were supposed to meet up that night, and when she didn't meet up, I tried calling her a couple of times, and some things happened that led me to suspect that maybe something was wrong with her. A couple of nights prior, I had to take her to seek medical care because she had a really bad asthma attack. So I was like, hey, is she answering the phone? Can't talk because she can't breathe. So like all these warning things start going off. Like, and then it's like, do I wait till tomorrow? Then find out she's passed out, dead at the house because she couldn't breathe. Yeah. And my dumb ass, all I had to do was just go there and check. So process of elimination, me thinking the worst, right? And I went over, and I won't make a long story out of it. I made some really bad choices when I got there. She was involved with another guy. It wasn't what I was ready or expecting to find, and it was just emotions through the roof.
Oh, of course,
and it was
course,
like,
man. Same. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of us men have either gone through that or would have done the same, or who knows where it would have went. I mean, we see about it on the news every day. I just here in San Antonio, I'll just tell you right now. Last night, I'm looking in the news this morning. Some dude found his girlfriend with another dude, and what did he do? He stabbed the guy like 30 times. And that was just last night, in an apartment. So,
but it was really intense, right? And I was like, my early 20s, and I was very upset. Like, I just felt like my whole world was just collapsing because she had meant so much to me, and I was just really hard to take it all in. It was like overload. Told the guy to leave. She told me her girlfriend was in the other room sleeping, and I was like, oh no. I'm like, look, let's just go to the other house. We go to my house. And the whole incident was about 45 minutes. I'm not downplaying it all. But it was a sequence of, I don't want to say a victim of circumstances, because I'm not playing victim with this, but it was one bad decision after another. And what it's looking at from an outside looking in, it's like a situation's getting worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
right? And when you're in it, you don't realize you're just like doing certain things, and you're like, well, wait a minute, no, that's not what I wasn't trying to do, and it's too late,
Yeah.
right?
At that point, yeah.
You're like, oh shit, one bad thing led to another chain reaction, right? I got arrested, and I spent the next 9 months on pretrial confinement with no bail. The district attorney's office portrayed me as a danger in society due to my police and Marine Corps training.
Wow.
So
Wow.
during that time, I had no more money to pay for legal fees anymore because I can't work, and so I had to sell off everything I owned, and then came down to it, and there was a plea offer, and they wanted me. They would charge me home invasion, attempted murder, kidnapping. There was like 22 charges altogether, and it was just they just stack them, and then as elements of the crime can't be met, so no matter what, they get you for something.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And so, the day of the plea bargain, they made some offers. If you plead guilty to this, we'll do 7 to 10, which means you have to serve 7 years. I'm like, but you want me to admit to something I didn't do? I'm not saying like this incident did not happen or you're arresting the wrong person, but the way you're portraying this isn't exactly like I didn't have criminal intent with any of this. But not to take away from her at all. She didn't deserve to undergo that whatever I was unleashing either, right?
Sure.
So it the courts were doing what they were doing, and they brought my mother in the holding cell and my grandmother, and they were both alive at that time. And my lawyer came in and he's like, "Hey, listen, this is what they're offering, 5 to 7, or we're going to take this to trial starting tomorrow." And he's like, "And I got bad news. You're out of money. You're going to have to go with a public defender starting tomorrow." And I was just like,
man.
I'm like, "Oh my God." He's like, "John, they're looking to lock you up for 20 years. I'm like, I got one speeding ticket my whole life.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is a shock. Like, whoa, man. And you're trying to look out, have foresight. Like 20 years. I'm gonna, like, what kind of a life am I gonna have when I come out?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so they got my mother upset, and she's crying. He's back and forth. I'm telling my lawyer, I'm like, Ed, you want me to say I'm guilty of something that I didn't do? I didn't do this. There was a lot of garbage. Like for instance, they were saying that there was blood all over my apartment from this horrendous beating, right? And I kept telling my lawyer, I'm like, that's not from her. Like they're trying to portray that I was beating her. I'm like, that's not from her. And he's like, John, who is it? Then who was it? Because you weren't bleeding. I had 3. Will, I'm a dog guy, right?
Yeah.
So I got 3 bulldogs. At that time, I had 3 boxers, and one was a female. And I was telling my attorney, I'm like, my dog is in heat. And as she was walking around the house, she's doing droplets. And he's like, John, you want me to try and come up with a defense saying it's animal blood? I'm like, it's the truth, though.
And they probably weren't doing DNA shit like that back then, right? Like,
so, well, they did, right? And so what they didn't do is, you see a drop of blood on the ground. I know this from my police training. I would put like a dollar bill next to the puddle or the speck, so you get perspective of how much it was, right?
Yep.
All they did was they zoomed in, and it looked like this big pool of blood. And I was like, man. So like the week before we did the plea bargain, the state police come in and they announced the results from the blood test, and it was animal blood. And I was like, and my lawyer's looking at me like, you weren't lying. I was like, I said, I'll tell you what I did that night, and I've been telling you.
Yeah.
But we ran with it. So now they got my mother in the holding cell with me, my grandmother, and they're like, John, the best we can do, and the court's closing for the day, 3.5 to 5. You plead guilty to this charge of kidnapping, and you're going to have to serve a minimum of 3.5 years. Wow. And my mother's crying, and my grandmother's mad. My mother's crying. My grandmother's mad.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And my mother's like, John, I don't want my baby to spend his whole adult life in prison. Just take the fucking deal, right?
I got
And
you.
my grandmother smacks me in the back of the head. Don't you say you did it. You didn't do it. You didn't do it. And I'm,
You got an angel and a demon sitting there.
yes, yes. The two of them going like
Oh
this.
man.
I'm like, oh my God. And my mother, she was a mess. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm putting my mother through this poor woman.
Yeah.
She doesn't deserve this. So I was like, yeah, go tell him.
Has
Fine,
mom gotten the clean bill of health at this point?
Mom was murdered.
No. Did mom right?
Yes,
Like,
she was good then.
she had gotten
Yeah.
through the cancer thing, right?
Yes.
That they
Yep.
let you out of the Corps for. Okay.
Yep. And so they brought me in, pled guilty, and off I went. And they credited me the 9 months I was already pretrial confined.
Oh, that was
right?
nice.
Yeah, the least they could do, I guess. Right?
Jesus.
So did that, and yeah, time away was interesting. It's a interesting place.
I mean,
And
I
like
can only imagine, dude.
my biggest fear was probably the scariest I've ever been in my life.
Oh wow.
To be honest with you, all the things
How
I've been
old
through, that's
were
probably
you at this time, if you don't mind me asking? How old were you?
I was 25.
25, man. Jeez.
And so they brought me to state prison, and my biggest fear was because I was the cop.
Oh yeah.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
I
I
bet.
was like, they're gonna kill me. I was like, I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna get raped, I'm gonna get killed. Like, I'm probably not gonna make it home, right? And so because the incident and everything was considered violent, I had to stay in maximum security. They want to keep violent offenders, what they call behind the wall. So I did that for the next 3 years, and then like my last few months, I was on pre-release. So I was able to walk up and down the highways with a stick, sticking and picking, cleaning up trash, and that was kind of embarrassing because some of it was in my neighborhood.
Oh
right?
man.
And I would see buddies of mine on the police department. They'd want to come up and talk to me. I'd be like, no, because here I am. I'm trying to keep the the light off of me that I'm in here as a cop.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like my time's short. I want to go home. I don't ever want to be here ever again. Right.
Do you think that them keeping you in the more like secure, right? So obviously you're locked down more. Do you think that actually probably helped you? Or was that like way fucking?
Oh no. So maximum. If you're in maximum, it doesn't mean you're locked up like 20 hours a day. Like you.
Oh, you're just in there with other shitbags.
Yeah.
You're just in there with just the
general
ones
population.
that are like, yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so I was in. Let me see. I was probably in a year and a half, and my mother came up to see me, and she was, we're behind glass, we're talking on phones, and she's talking about how she's not getting any younger, right? And she went on this vacation in Florida, met this guy, and they've stayed in touch, and he lives in Missouri, and they've long distance relationship back and forth, and she's like, John, he wants me to go live with him in Missouri, but I don't want to leave because you're here. And I'm like, Ma, I'm not going anywhere. Where am I going? I'm like, look around. Like,
go be
they
happy.
got me for a couple of years. Yeah, that's what exactly. Will, that's exactly what I said to her. I said, Ma, do you love him? And she's like, I love him. And she said to me, I don't want to die alone. I was like, Ma, I want you to be happy.
Yeah.
If that's going to make you happy, don't worry about me. I'll do what I got to do here. You go be happy, live your life. And then that was on a Thursday. And then the next Wednesday, my cell pops open. And I poke my head out, and they're like, hey, come down to the control room. And I go down the tier, and I go down there. And the deputy was in there, and he's on the phone. He puts the phone down. And he's like, you got an uncle named Owen, works for Suffolk County. I'm like, yes. He's like, take this phone call. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Everyone's going to see me go in the control room. Everyone's going to think I'm a rat. It's bad enough they think I'm a cop. I'm like, fuck. I go pick up the phone. It's my Uncle Owen, one of my role models, right? And he had said to me, he said, hey, we're going to come up and visit you really soon. And he's all upset. I'm like, okay. You needed to call me to tell me this?" And he's like, "I'm calling to tell you your mom's dead." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, they found her today. She was shot twice." And I was like, what the fuck?" And I'm like, "I just talked to her last week." And I get off the phone, and the deputy knew, and all the guards knew.
Yeah.
So they were just kind of like, "You good?" I was like, "Can I go to my cell?"
Yeah.
And I went in the cell. I just vegged out.
Yeah.
But it was just like, yeah, that was fucking shitty, right? And
Damn,
you get no
man,
choice
I'm
but
sorry to hear that, dude.
you get no choice but to deal with it, though, right, bro? You know what I mean? You're there. That's it. It's just like when we're deployed and we lose one of our buddies, you can't go home. You just gotta figure out a way how to get through it, right? And she had passed, and I was like, you know what? When I get home, her last memory was me being a shithead, getting locked up because I made some bad choices, right? And I was like, all right, well, I gotta make sure I do something good with my life.
Damn.
So she can look down and be like, all right, he fixed himself, right? Because there's recidivism. Once you get in that system, it's easy to get pulled back in.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, we see it now.
It's hard to get out,
guys.
man.
Yeah.
Like somebody's going to see that on a record, and they're not going to know who you are.
Right.
And they're going to make a judgment, regardless of right or wrong.
I've been dealing with it a lot throughout my whole career. It seems to be like the Hail Mary. It's like, oh, he did this, he did that. I'm climbing the ladder. I'm doing well, right? I'm trying to be a good role model for other soldiers so they don't make bad choices, and I want them to do well, right?
Yeah.
And the next, there's other people in the peanut gallery over here that come out and be like, "Hey, do you know what that guy did?" And then it's like, whoosh, just chops me right back down. And I'm like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
Like,
there's snakes out there, man.
And they're quick to tell you,
Will, right?
They're quick to tell you, you need to let that go, get over it. I'm like, I'm not the one that needs to let it go.
Right.
I've moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the Gen Pop dudes ever find out that you were a cop?
Yeah. It was a lot
I'm assuming that came out. Like, I mean, today it's probably impossible to hide it all, right? You've got the internet,
social
right?
media,
You see some of these, the shit from prison. These dudes have cell phones that they've smuggled in, right? Like, I mean, the social media, all of that, right? Like, it would expose somebody immediately, but that didn't exist necessarily. I'm assuming like the guards and right, the other folks, right, knew. And then
so some of the guards they like to see the trouble.
Oh, I bet.
So
Jesus,
they help their day get by, right?
Yeah. So there was let me see. There was the Latin Gangster Disciples. There was the Nietas. Who else was there? There was several different gangs. The Spanish gangs. They would use me as an initiation, like 2-3 new Hispanics. Right, get on the cell block, and they got to start to run with somebody, right? Or they're going to get hung out to dry. So they figure, and they'd be like, oh, hey, they tell them, you want to be in the Nietas, you need to go over there and take out the cop. He's in cell 10.
Oh my
and I'd be
God.
I'd be laying there reading a muscle magazine or just in my room, 4 or 5 of them in there, and it's on, right? And they got, I just grab hold and just fighting. It's 8x12. There's not much room, so you gotta be able to be powerful and fast, right? And lock it down. COs lock everything down. I mean, they'd be filed down toothbrushes on my floor that they didn't get to stab me with, right? They melt razor blades and melt it into the toothbrush handles to try and slice you. Yeah.
Jesus.
And they come and they lock you up, even though if you're defending yourself, there's no like, oh, you get to stay on the cell block. They take everybody.
Oh, sure.
So then they take you to the isolation, go to the hole. Yeah, I've done some time in the hole. They strip you naked and you're just in there, and then you're locked down 23 hours a day.
Yeah,
jeez, man.
And until they figure out that you're good enough, and the tension has cooled down enough, right?
Oh my
Then
God.
they put you back out in general population, and then something happens again, and then it just keeps repeating its cycle. That's why I was saying, like, it's a different world,
Yeah.
right? And what you don't want to do is be the guy that goes crying to the correction officers, right? The jail guards. You don't want to do that, because then people are just going to start taking your shit. They're going to start charging you protection money, which means
Sure.
people on
You show
the
weakness.
outside.
You
Yes.
show
Yeah.
weakness, and right, like it's the old right. Find the biggest motherfucker that you can find and go pop him in the mouth, right?
Yeah.
And I can only admit, right, like at that point, I'm assuming you are not as yoked as you are now.
No, I lost a lot of weight when I first went in.
Yeah, I
Right,
bet.
stress, depression,
Sure.
everything, and then it was just like I guess I could say I got to a point where it's like it's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
As much as I want to keep feeling sorry for myself, it's not going to get any better.
That
So-
level of resilience, dude.
So it's like I gotta just, you know what, I gotta make the most of this and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Right. That my whole goal. Right. We talked about, you know, having drive. Right. That was my goal was
Yeah.
to get home. I wanted
Yeah.
to be Joe Civilian again. I wanted to
Yeah.
get out and get my freedom back. And so I started getting back into powerlifting, and I just started swelling up. You know, I'd eat like 4 or 5 boxes of mac and cheese a day. It wasn't good eating, right? Like
Just bulk phase.
that's all I
Nothing but
was.
bulk phase.
Yeah.
That was it. Straight up bulk phase. And I got up to like 270, 280. And I came home and was like, all right, maybe I think I found my new thing. I'm going to get into powerlifting, and started get into powerlifting when I got out.
So you're out. Okay. So you're out now, right? Like,
Yeah, I got out in 99.
all right. Where do you go from there?
Well, I would like to, I mean, before we go in that, man, I would like to just really, because that's kind of what you said there, and it's going through my mind, and that's what sparked me to start this whole channel in the first place, you know, and the term comfort in chaos, you know, and being a leader in the military, this is just exactly what it is. And I only harp on this now, and it stands out to me the most now because, you know, in my time now, and I see a lot, and maybe it's just a generational thing, or maybe it's just what the type of soldier now, but we have a society now where they will literally dwell on every excuse possible to accept where they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And here you are, and going through everything that you went through, you know, everything you experienced, you know, from being locked up, you know, knowing your faults, get locked up, and then losing your mother, you know, you literally could have dwelled on any aspect of that and just called it quits, or went a whole different path of your lifestyle. And I mean, you had multiple excuses that you could have pointed out, you know, that you could have easily said, hey, this is why I do what I do, you know, or here's why. I'm dwelling on all these excuses, but you didn't. You know, and you had something to strive for, and you went for it, You know, you accepted it. And I tell my guys now, you know, I'll say, hey, I'll go into a combat, I'll go into a firefighter, I'll go do a mission with 4 dudes who want to be there over 40 who are told to be there. You give me 4 dudes on my team who want to be there, and we'll go execute whatever mission you want us to do. But I'll take those 4 who want to be there over the 400 who are just told to be there, because there's going to be a difference, you know.
Yep.
You know, and just I just really wanted to emphasize on that, man, because I really, that stands out to me. I applaud you for that, you know, because that is literally what I'm all about myself, you know, and that's what inspires me as I continue my leadership round before I retire, you know. But that is what this channel really is about, you know, and it literally is finding comfort in this chaos, you know, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to experience it. And you, my friend, have literally wave after wave of chaos, you know, and you found a way through it. You know, you found a way through it, because just look at your resume, you know. So I wanted to just take that time away, man. I don't mean to interrupt you, Will. I
No.
really want to emphasis on that because it really stands out. And that is, to me, one of the most important messages that need to be out there now. Just not even for military people, but just for society as a whole, you know, really.
Yeah. So what I try and do, and I've explained this to quite a few people. I'm not going to say a good leader is someone that had been in trouble, because you have to experience being in trouble to know how to steer people away from trouble.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's two sides to that coin, right?
Yep.
But what I'm not going to do is fault either one of you for not experiencing that,
Mm-hmm.
right? I applaud you. Thank goodness you didn't have to suffer and endure what I had to go through, right? But on the positive side, I am going to use that experience to try and prevent others from going down that road. So I try and take that shitty situation and make a positive and have a positive impact because of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, not like, hey, it's great I got locked up. Hey, it's great I lost my career. I fucked up my life. No, that's not great. But what is great is what I learned from that,
Mm-hmm.
to try and apply that to people that, hey, you don't need that in your life. I'm telling you, right? And to steer them away and mentor and give guidance,
Mm-hmm. That's what the world needs right now.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's like all these, in jail, we call them paper gangsters. On paper, they sound tough on paper, right? But you can pull their card real quick. They'll be the first one to check in the protective custody so they don't get their ass whooped, right? Right. So here it is. Like everybody can talk tough, but when it comes down to it,
see it in the service too.
Right. Exactly. So
All
there's
the
a lot
time.
that can relate, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, hey, man, you walking around like that, be careful, because there's always a big and badder, and someone's going to pull your card, and
Yep.
you better be able to step up when that happens, or you're just all talk.
Yep.
Right. And I think this is just me. I think in our organization, if you can walk the walk and talk the talk, it's going to give you so much more street cred, because some younger soldier, somebody that thinks they got something on you, they try and pull your card and you put them in check. They're like, oh,
yep,
yeah. Hey, let me tell you something, young buck. You just made a mistake, but it's all right. It's a mistake you can learn from. You know what I mean?
I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I ever was. And you done fucked up, Ron. Like, here comes this onion. Here it comes, buddy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, I got out in '99, and I know, Will, you'd ask, like, what the hell do you do at that point?
Yeah.
So my uncle, he had a dumpster company, roll-off dumpsters from a roll-off truck. So I went and got my license to do that.
Mob front company, but go on.
So I was doing that for a while, right? And then I was like, you know what? I got my GI Bill. I want to start going to college. And I started going to take classes at Mass Bay Community College to be an x-ray tech. I was going to do x-rays, right? I was like, no more hard labor. No more hard labor digging holes, taking out trash. I'm gonna take x-rays or work at a hospital. People are going to think I'm a doctor or something, right?
I'm gonna wear scrubs.
Whatever. Just like, yeah. And so I was doing that.
You not doing hard labor just cracks me the fuck up.
Right? So I was taking classes, and then I was also a friend of mine, one of my childhood best friends. We opened up a glass business together. So he was more of an investing partner, and I was the working partner, right? So doing windshield replacements, and that was going well. Taking my classes at college, and then what I was doing is I was doing security at a nightclub downtown Boston called the Rack, and it was in the financial district, and it was for like 10 years straight. It was like the #1 hotspot in Boston. If you were a movie star, an athlete, you went to the Rack. Like Tom Brady used to have me on speed dial, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He would call me. Years and years ago, he used to date one of the waitresses there, and they would party. And it was funny one time. I come into work one night, and like at the coat check area, there's a wall. There's like a huge bouquet and bouquets of flowers. And I'm like, who the hell sent all these flowers? And they're like, oh, they're for Samantha. I'm like, who sent them? And they're like, oh, Tom sent them. And she was mad. She's like mad, all mad. I was like, whatever, right?
I'll take
I'm
'em.
out the door. I'm checking IDs at the door that night, and my phone rings. I look and I'm like, ah. And I tell the general manager, I'm like, hey, I got to take this call. Like, oh, you're checking IDs. I'm like, it's Tom Brady, and he's like, all right, call Tom, take the call. Obviously, they're going to come in, right? We always put up the red rope for them. So I take the call, and he says to me, he says, hey, is Sam working tonight? I said, yeah, why? And he's like, because she hasn't been answering my calls. Did she get my flowers? I said, Tom, everyone got your flowers. No one can miss them, right? And so he's like, hey, I'm going to come down. Can you meet me at the back door so I don't get bum rushed at the front? I was like, yeah, just call me when you park. I'll meet you at the back alley and bring them in. Yeah, so I got autographed footballs and helmets from him. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff, right?
So cool.
The Red Sox, the Bruins would come in there. Visiting teams would come in there. That was the spot, right? So I did that for a little while. And then 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And I was
That
like,
changed
oh,
everything, man.
Yeah, so I was at class. I was in the cafeteria at Mass Bay, and I was sitting there eating a sandwich in between classes, and I saw one tower was smoking, and I'm watching, and then you see the second one come in and hit it. And
That's when
I
you
was like,
knew,
holy
right?
shit. Yeah. Well, no, I still didn't know.
No.
So there was a young kid sitting next to me. And I look over and I was like, hey, man, what movie is this? I've never seen this fucking movie.
Wow.
Damn.
And he's like, he looks at me and goes, this is live. What are you talking about? And then not even 5 minutes after him and I were talking, the fire alarm stopped going off, telling everyone to leave school, go home. Go home. I get in my car, I go to leave, and I'm like, holy shit, we're being attacked. This is for real.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess I know what I got to do. I drove right to the Marine Corps recruiting office and walked in and was like, hey, like, I want to come back in the Marine Corps. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, no, seriously, like, you need to get a MEPS date. Like, and he's like, hey, slow down. I was like, well, he's like, what got you to come in here today? I go, because we're going to war.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you talking about? I said, someone just attacked.
He didn't even know yet.
City. And he has a TV there and it wasn't on. I was like, turn your TV on. He turned it on and he was just like, wow. Oh shit. I was like, yeah. So I know if someone's coming to do this, we're sending the Marines to go do the worse than that to them.
Yeah.
I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
So he put me in, set me up, and he calls me up and he's like, hey man, I gotta ask you something. I'm like, yeah, what's that? He goes, you've been arrested. Yeah. He's like, yeah, we can't touch you, man. He's like, I'm sorry, but nothing we can do with you. I'm like, God damn it. Fuck. Yeah. So then working at the nightclub, there was a guy that would come in regularly and he was a National Guard recruiter. Right? Well, I'm sorry. The Marine Corps put me in to go to MEPS. Went to MEPS, did the physical.
Yeah.
I got disqualified. One, he was like, you got a criminal record. I'm like, shit. Yeah. I'm like, can I get a waiver or something? He's like, no, Marine Corps won't touch you.
Yeah, they weren't doing that yet.
Nope. And then they said I had a lump in my throat. And they said it was this, I told the doctor, I said, it's a swollen lymph node, right? And they said, no. Oh, man. And at that time, I was like 240, 250 pounds. I just, like a month before, I just did a bodybuilding competition. I was like 5%, 4% body fat. I was shredded going into MEPS. So I didn't have a big lump coming out. It was growing in.
Oh, my God.
But it was on my carotid artery.
Yeah.
So I left MEPS being disqualified medically. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I drive to the VA hospital. I insist to talk to my primary care doctor. Like, hey, I've been telling you for years there's a lump here. And you kept telling me it was a swollen lymph node. I said, I just got disqualified for service. They said I got a tumor. He starts taking an examination, sends me down the hall. They do an ultrasound. They tell me to come back the next morning. I had to go. They put some scope in the artery in my thigh, all the way up into my neck.
Shit.
The very next day, and then they're like, "Hey, that thing needs to come out."
Oh shit.
They get a team from all over the country to come in because of the surgery was requiring them to stop the blood flow to my brain on the right side, remove the carotid artery.
Holy crap, man.
And replace it with a saphenous vein from my thigh. So they were like, they're bringing in a team, I think from like Maryland, that does brain monitoring, another couple of surgeons from other places in the country that wanted to be part of this surgical team. And I was like, I don't know. And the doctor's like, look, if we don't have the surgery, if you opt out of having the surgery, if you live another 5 years without a stroke or death, it'll be a miracle. He's like, 5 years is like you're capped.
Damn.
It's the size of a golf ball. It's stopping the blood flow to your brain. What do you want to do? I was like, well, what are my chances with the surgery? He goes, well, you could die in the surgery.
Jeez.
And my daughter had just been born, right? So my daughter was like 3 months old. And I was like, or a year and 3 months, 13 months. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I was like, well, I wanted to have a dad. So let's roll the dice. Let's get this worked out. I was under the knife. So the Marine Corps birthday is on November 10th.
Well, that's how Marines measure time. I understand.
Yep. My surgery was on November 10th.
Yeah.
Right. I was reborn again. Right. Twice. Right. So I was like, all right. So I go in for the surgery, and I remember they had me strapped down. My arm strapped down like a T. Right. Like I was on a damn cross. Right. The doctor comes in. He's leaning over talking to me, and I look. He's got a skull cap on. Right. With skull and crossbones on it. I'm like, oh no, what did I get myself into here? I'm at the VA.
That's the perfect doc. That's the doc.
Man. And I'll never forget what I said to him. He was like, we're going to stop the anesthesia. You go ahead and count back from 10. You got anything else? Any questions or anything? I was like, yes. And he's like, what do you got? And I said, well, what got me here is because I wanted to get back in and serve my country. And he's like, okay. I'm like, fix me so I can serve again. And he's like, I'll do my best. And then, come out of the surgery, several months in the hospital. I had to go to speech therapy to learn how to swallow again because I lost my gag reflex, so I couldn't eat. Everything was intravenous. Had to learn how to talk. It was pretty rough. I was drooling all over myself. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I had no control of my tongue. Learn how to talk. Taught my muscles how to control my gag reflex again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I had 42 staples down my neck and like 39 down my thigh.
Yeah.
I finally come out of the hospital and I go to the recruiter.
Jesus Christ.
and it's bright
Singular
red
focus,
staples.
right? Singular focus. I've got one thing I have to do.
That's right.
This is my
That's right.
purpose.
I'm a shark. I can smell the blood in the water. I'm coming. I'm just coming.
Yeah.
And so bright red scar, and he was like, I don't know, man. So he was a guard recruiter that was a regular at the nightclub. I was like, man, I'd really like a chance to get back in. And so he was like, you want to join the guard? I think we might be able to get you a waiver coming the guard. And I was kind of nervous because I was like, oh, I'm going to go combat with
the guard? Right.
I don't know. Right. I was like, this could be iffy. And it ended up working out to being a blessing.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
And it debunked a lot of my myths. Now, maybe years ago, they were meeting the expectations of those negative stigmas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It during GWAT, a lot of that did not exist. Like that was gone. They were out doing it, right?
They were hopping and popping, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get put in for the physical. They bring me in to go to the physical. I went up to Portsmouth Naval Base in New Hampshire, and the doctor, he looks at me and everything, and he's like, "Are you sure about this?" I said, "I'm positive. This is what I want to do." And he's like, now I'm standing there with no shirt on or anything, right? So he sees my Marine Corps tattoo on my rib cage, right?
Yeah.
He's like, listen, I'm a general practice doctor. He's like, all this you had done, listen, I don't want to crush your dreams right now. He's like, so what we'll do is I don't have the expertise to make the decision whether or not if you can serve. He's like, let's send it up to the experts, right? Department of the Army's Health and Surgeon General, whatever the department is. He's like, they're going to have a cardiovascular surgeon that will be able to make the call. He goes, so I see your Marine Corps tattoo. You had to be a crazy Marine to even want to try and come in after the surgery. We'll let it ride. About a month, 2 months went by. I was out replacing a windshield. My phone. I look at my phone. My phone's ringing, and I'm like, oh, I'm excited. Maybe it's another windshield, right? More work. I answer the phone. Safety auto glass. What can I do for you? And the guy identified himself as, I forget his name, but he was a colonel. He's like, I'm calling from the Army's, Surgeon General's office, whatever the office is, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm looking at a packet here, and do you understand how lucky you are to survive the operation you had? And I was like, I guess. Right now, I'm just like, come on, let's go.
Look, man, I got shit to do. Let me go blow some shit up, or let me finish this fucking job.
Right. And he's like, I'm looking at this packet here, and son, you understand we're at war right now. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, and you already survived that type of a surgery. I'm like, sir, I understand what I'm asking. And he's like, well, you've been cleared for full duty. I was like, okay. He goes, I'm sure you'll be hearing from your recruiter probably within 5 to 10 minutes. I was like, all right. I was like, okay. And he's like, you have any questions for me? I'm like, you said full duty. Like, I can be a cook, full duty. I can be a laundry technician. Like, what do you mean full duty? Like, what? There has to be some type of restrictions. Yeah. Like, I just had my carotid ripped out. Like, it's got to be some kind. He's like, son, you've been cleared for full duty. It says here you're requesting to be 11 Bravo infantry. I'm like, that's right. He goes, Godspeed, son. You're cleared for full duty. And I was like, whoa, no bullshit. Hung up the phone. Recruiter's like, get down here so we can swear you in. Swore in. I was deployed a month later.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah. Now, did you have to go back through basic? Like, did the Army or were they like, yep, Marine Corps, obviously, right? Or did you have to go through the one stop like infantry OSIT training or OSIT like
OSIT?
Nope.
So they were like Marine Corps good enough, like in full send.
So they actually pulled up a policy. There was a policy, and it said if you had attended basic training in the Marine Corps during this time frame, you were exempt. And I had attended during that time frame.
Yeah. So you were full send.
Yeah. So it gets crazy, right? So when I got out of the Marine Corps, we had the M60 machine gun.
Yeah.
The M60. I don't know if either of you guys even had that when you came.
Yeah, I've shot it. The old pig.
I wish I did. No.
So I come in and I got this young E5 sergeant in the Marine Corps. We don't call him E's, right? That's the sound bat makes. So he was a young sergeant, but he had a Ranger tab in my guard unit, right? And everybody was like, oh, whatever this guy says. And he would say some of the most wazoo bullshit. And everyone's like, oh, as if it came from Jesus Christ himself. And I'm like, why do you guys always, he's saying some dumb shit. They're like, yeah, but he's a Ranger. And I'm like, what? What does this thing mean? What's this Ranger thing mean? What is it? I'm like, man, how do you get in that club where you can say the most dumbest, stupid shit? And everyone's like, oh, it's got to be legit because he's got a Ranger tab. It's got to be. And I'm like, which, as I've learned through my career, it's all shapes and sizes, right?
Sure.
Right. So that was my first experience as a PFC. I'm like, what the fuck? And so he starts getting on me. And my first time I show up, my uniform's jacked up. It's starched, right? Like it could stand up on its own with no, like I was thinking I was back in the Marine Corps, right? It's all starched, spit shine jungle boots, right? The BDU's nice. But the patches, we didn't have patches in the Marine Corps. So I didn't know exactly how the patches went.
Oh, shoot.
So the patches were on the shoulder, were fucked up, and they were just dogging me. And I was like, oh, man, all right, another self-inflicted wound. I brought it on myself, but I didn't know, right? And then like, we got to wear this, I'm like, man, I got to put this fucking black sock on my head, a beret, right? I'm like, how do you, this fucking, I look, my uniform was great. The patches and the beret. Fucking.
Full guard.
Not there.
So you never go full guard.
Yeah, right? So this E5, he's like, go to the arms room and pull out a 240. You're going to sit here and you're going to fucking clean a 240. Because he's like, I can't trust you with nothing else. And I'm like, I own a business. I got 3 fucking jobs. I'm going to college, and I got this fucking guy hammering me, saying like I'm, because I'm wearing TFC.
This is you just showing up to like weekend drill, right? Like,
yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Weekend drill. You're like, motherfucker, I did time, dude. You need to chill.
Dude, all right, this is not good to say, but I'm going to say because we're here and it's funny, right?
Hey,
The whole
welcome to
time this is
Comfort and
happening,
Chaos.
all I'm saying is 1700 on Sunday. I'm gonna whoop the shit out of you, right? Like in my head, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
man.
man,
I would.
It's
I
soon
would.
as
I
soon
wouldn't
as I'm off
expect
duty, you're
anything
getting
less.
up.
Honestly, I'd be like, I'd be
I'm
the
like,
same way. I'd
man,
be
this
like, bro.
fucking guy. At 1700, we're going back to the real world. Right? I'm gonna
I'm
take
gonna
your
meet you
lunch
on the
money.
block,
Right?
son.
So
Exactly.
anyways, he ended up years later. We got to be friends. He's actually not a bad guy, but I was just like, what the fuck? But I get the 240, and I'm standing there, I'm holding the 240, and he's like, why are you standing there like you got something growing out of your forehead? I'm like, I don't know what this is. He's like, that's a 240 Bravo. I'm like, okay. In his mind, I was fucking with him. He's thinking I just got out of basic.
Right.
Oh,
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, Sergeant, I don't know what this is. Don't you talk back to me. Get out, do push-ups. And I'm just like, oh, I can't wait for fucking Sunday. I just gotta get out of here. But he's telling me to hurry up, take it apart and break it down. I'm like, I don't know where to start. I've never seen this fucking thing before.
Yeah.
And finally, we had a little talk, and he was just like, I'm like, Sergeant, you show me how to do this. And from there, he showed me everything. It's been history since, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with a 240 now. Right? So, like I said, I did that one weekend drill, and then I was deployed the next month.
Holy shit. Iraq, right?
I went to Sinai, my first one.
Okay. That's right. So you were responding to like some like terrorist attacks and stuff over there, right? Like was that time frame?
Yeah, we had three terrorist attacks while we were there.
Were any of them directed at the U.S. at that time, or
no?
Or you guys were just kind of like a response force? Were you like training with the Egyptians? What?
No, so the MFO, it's a peacekeeping mission, right? It's like 13 countries contribute. It's been going on since the 70s. But we have outposts all throughout the Sinai Peninsula, right? And we monitor to maintain that the treaties met by all parties, right? We're like playing referee, right?
Sure.
But in the Sinai, there's a lot of Israeli vacation locations, right? Like there's a lot of like resorts that Jewish people would come to, right? So there was several locations that were known to have a lot of Jewish vacationers that got attacked, and we ended up responding, providing first aid and helping with evac. Yeah. So nothing was actually directed to us. Now, years later, there were some U.S. troops that got hit there.
Yeah. Okay. So really, it was like medical evac, pulling security, right? Like you're kind of getting that feet wet again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that worked out great, right? Because I had lived with a Lebanese family for about off and on 8-9 years, and I learned an awful lot of Arabic.
Oh wow.
And then we went to Sinai. I was able to fucking use it, right? I could use Arabic, and then came back from Sinai. Then I went right straight to Iraq after that, and I was able to have conversation with the interpreters, and I could actually talk when we were out on patrols.
Now, were these like scheduled guard deployments for the mass guard, or was it like, hey, like let me in, like I want to go?
So all right, so the Sinai was a mass. One company from Mass was rounding out a battalion from New Jersey, and that one Mass company needed people. So they were like, hey, who wants to volunteer to deploy? I was like, that's why I'm here. Send me. Right.
Fuck yeah.
So off I went. And then when we came back from that deployment, we landed at Fort Dix, New Jersey, coming back. And they brought us all in a chapel, and some sergeant major came in and was part of the welcoming party to welcome us back. And they were like, hey, anybody here, we have units that are short on manning in theater right now in Iraq that they need numbers replenished. Anyone here want to stay and redeploy to Iraq? And I raised my hand because I was like, I lost my business. I couldn't finish my degree. I got my daughter at home. I'm like, I need a paycheck. Like, yeah, send me back. So I turn around, and there was other hands that went up, and that made me take my hand down. I was like, oh, I would never serve with that chucklehead.
Oh
No
wow.
way. And I held off. About 2 weeks later, we're out processing. I go back home. Well, the Guard used to have a database you can put your name in and volunteer.
Yeah.
So I got home, put my name in the database. I was in Iraq before those people volunteered at Fort Dix. Yeah, and I wasn't with any of them. I was like, I
There
never
you
wanted
go.
to deploy with any of. Well, yeah, there was quite a few of those guys that were like, "Yeah, send me," and I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna get people killed. I don't want to be
Yeah.
around him." And they've done well in their career, but I'm glad I didn't be placed at risk with them. I did my own
Sure.
thing.
So how long after you got back from your Sinai rotation were you in Iraq?
About a month.
Wow.
Yeah,
So immediately right back out the door.
yeah. Yeah. Like as my terminal leave ended, I came up on another deployment order off I
Yeah.
had.
Now,
And
did you volunteer for these or?
Yeah. Well, okay, so not all of them. So Sinai was my unit. Well, no, I did volunteer for that.
and then you
Afghanistan,
volunteered for
Iraq,
Iraq, your first deployment in Iraq. What year was that? It was like
oh,
0506, right?
yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And then came back from 0506, went to Camp Shelby. We started out processing. Some full bird colonel was in processing. I was out processing, and he's like, "Hey, where you coming from, Sergeant?" I was like, "I'm just getting back from Iraq. I was with the 155 out of Mississippi." And he's like, "You guys saw a lot of action while we were over there." I'm like, "Yeah, we lost some good soldiers." And he's like, "Well, how would you feel about taking that combat experience from Iraq and putting it to work in Afghanistan?" And I'm like, "Wow, I don't have a job. I
Yeah.
need, like, in my mind, I'm
Yeah.
like, I need a job, and man, I would like to know what it's like to fight Taliban now that I fought, these knuckleheads in Iraq. Like, sure, I'm thinking it's going to be months down the road."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Sure, sir." Like, yeah. He's like, "Oh, stop out processing. Come on over here. We're going to change your orders." And they just flipped my orders. And I was like, "When are we leaving?" Like a couple of months. And he's like, "You're going to be in country in 3 weeks."
Jesus.
I was like, "I
How
haven't
long?
seen my."
How long were
I
you in
said,
Iraq?
about
Was it a
9
full
months.
year? Yeah. Okay.
No,
So a nine-month deployment.
because I was a late. I showed up late. I was replacing a vacancy.
Yeah. And then,
Or
so where were you at in Iraq? Like what area were you in? Because
so
0506, it was starting to get spicy for
yeah. So
sure.
there was we fell under second MEF. So we were in
Okay.
the southwest. We had
So out in Diyala province, like out where it was
Anbar.
really, or I'm sorry, Al Anbar province, where it was getting spicy. Like it was real spicy out there.
Yeah.
Real spicy.
So I was 10th Mountain was there before us,
Yeah.
and it was called Fob Chosen. When we
Okay.
came in and ripped them out, it was Fob Iskan, Fob
Yep.
Iskandaria.
Yep.
It was the
Yep.
power
Yep.
plant with the four power, the power
Yep.
stacks.
I know exactly where that is.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we were out of. And so yeah, that was a busy tour.
Yeah. So tell me about that tour, man. Like, so now, right? Like, we're no longer in like, provide, medical assistance and pull a little security here and there, and right, like, this is war, man. Like, I mean, this is what you signed up for, right? This is what you said. Hey, this is what I want to go. I want to go mix it up. Like, what are what are your thoughts arriving in country, right? That first tick, right? That first snap where you hear that, that bullet zoom by. Like, what, you said the scariest time is my time, right? Going to prison.
Yeah,
And that's wild considering right? Like,
Exactly.
now
When you
we're
look
in
at the rest of
fucking
this
war,
resume,
right? Like,
you know.
right. And really it comes down to, right, that resiliency, I'm assuming, that you've already built, right? From you're not some 20-year-old kid anymore, right? Like, you're a
right.
little bit older, right? You've got your head on straight. And now you're going to mix it up. Like, so what is, what are you thinking when this shit starts finally hitting the fan? Because I've read some of the stories of the exploits of John Melson starting in that deployment.
Yeah, and
So
what rank and position were you holding at this time too?
So I was a sergeant, E5.
Okay.
I was just a team leader. Um, but so I don't know if I can actually accurately describe it. So getting locked up, going into state prison, I, I meant what I said. I think that was one of the most fearful moments in my life. Whereas I, every firefight, every patrol I rolled out on, the fear of an IED or not coming home from patrol, the fear was there, but I was more at peace knowing like, hey, I am doing what I want to do, right? Like I am here with a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas I'm going to jail and it's like, man, I just want to get back to normal. Like I don't want this to be the culminating, the climax of my life ends with me going into that place, right? Whereas like I'm 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 serving my country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's guys to my left and right. I'm going to give my all, so at least they can make it home,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like, yeah, this the fear of man, I can get really fucked up right now. Like shit can go sideways. But it's like, but I can't let anybody down. I can't let my country down. I can't let my mom down, right? I
Yeah.
can't let my
And at
buddies
that
down.
point,
So
you're an NCO, right?
yeah,
So I mean, I get like my first deployment right into Baghdad. I was a young private, so I didn't have that same responsibility. But when it was, it's different when you're on a team and you've got your brothers to your left and right. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey man, like I can't show that fear, right? Like I can't, right? Like I got to be the solid motherfucker that
right.
these guys are looking for when it goes bad. That hey, like we're gonna be okay, right? Like you got to provide that level of confidence, whether it's the real or not. Sometimes, right? Like you got to keep that cool head on you and bring your brothers and sisters home. And I think that really, like, as we continue on in the John Melson story, right? And we talk about that singular focus, right? You tell me, man, was one of those focuses, and I bet it was. I put good money on it, good retired money on it. Hey, I got to bring these brothers home. Like,
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest things that have weighed on me throughout my entire career is that um, I don't want to ever doubt or feel that I didn't give the folks that are serving with me, give them everything I got, right? So 100% and then some, right?
That's legit, man.
Right. So I hate listening. I've heard it quite frequently thrown around during GWAT from guard leaders. I brought all my guys home, and I'm like, man, fuck you,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That that means nothing to me. You brought all your guys home. What do you think? I'm gonna. So if someone dies, I'm gonna leave them there. No,
right.
got it. We're gonna bring everybody home, right? But if you served up in Mazar Sharif with the Taliban takes R&R and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't suffer any casualties, nothing happened, but the poor kids down in Helmand were
Yeah,
getting their asses schwacked.
yeah,
That doesn't mean that they had bad leaders,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. While
right?
you were
So
turtled up, I was out fucking getting it. Like,
right,
cool story, bro.
right. So it's like when I hear those kinds of statements, it burns me up because I know what I bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And it's like, man, that's kind of a loaded thing to fucking say to throw out there. So you're saying because Will lost three of his soldiers that he's a piece of shit or he's not worthy as a leader, but you didn't even see action. So
yeah,
you don't even know if your metal's ever been tested, right? Now, if that person's losing soldiers because they're making poor leadership decisions, that's totally different,
yes,
right? But we it's bred into us, right? While we're there, and the bonds we make, it's almost it almost becomes like an unwritten thing. You're not going
Mm-hmm.
to leave somebody laying on the battlefield, right? Because you're like,
Mm-hmm.
that's
yeah,
my boy,
yeah.
right?
Never.
And we're going to fight it out till we can get to him, right? Like no one's going out like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so
You didn't
that
even have
is
that ranger built, that ranger creed, right? Of, hey, like we're all coming home, right? I will never leave a fallen comrade, right? Like we
that's
are,
right,
um, till the last drop. Like that's it. There is no other question. There is no other statement. Full stop.
yeah.
Like that wasn't even there yet, but it was there. Like that was inside you. Like, and you can tell.
Yeah. So 23 years of service, very small portion of that was in the Marine Corps, but I think the Marine Corps set the foundation that I built upon, right? They were hard to me. It's great. I actually, I know he doesn't remember me, but he is a friend on my Facebook, one of my drill sergeants, my drill instructors. I found him on Facebook and I was like, hey man, I don't know if you remember me, but this is it. And man, he's like, I'm really glad things turned out for you. Well, he's retired now and everything.
Yeah.
And, but like, there was things that we did in the Marine Corps at basic training. Like I share with some of the officers I work with now, and they're like, oh, that would not be acceptable. But if you understand the method to the madness,
yeah.
For instance, I'll share a story with you, and I'm not trying to throw my drill instructors under the bus. I think it was an amazing learning, right? So we're all standing on line. There's like 100 of us in our platoon, right, at basic training, and you have roster numbers written on the back of your t-shirts, right? And back then we didn't have shorts with the swimmies built in. We wore jock straps. Right? So you got a roster number written on the waistband of your jock strap, right? So we come in from PT, and you're all standing on line at attention, right? And they're like, all right, you got 10 seconds, take your PT shirts off, throw them in the center of the squad bay. 10, 9, 8, and everyone's taking them off. They throw them, right? 2, 1, 0, free, sir. We're all standing there, right? The laundry people, they pick it up and they all put in the roll-away bin, right? Like, get your PT shorts off. You have 10 seconds. 10, 5, 3, 2. And everyone takes them off, throws their shorts on. Now we're all standing there in just our jock straps, right? And you're just looking around, and it's the funniest shit because I'm sitting there like, this is hilarious. Now, I'm going to go back in time a little bit further. My childhood growing up in Boston, it was very segregated. It was very sectioned off. The Puerto Ricans lived here.
Yep.
Jamaicans lived here. Blacks lived there. Fucking Asians lived here. White Irish over here. White Italians. It was very segregated, right? And so here you are. I'm in this hodgepodge. All kinds of people with basic training. We're all standing there in jock straps. There's white, black, yellow, brown. There's everybody, right? And I'm just like, oh man, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
If we take these jock straps off, everyone's gonna see my thing. I don't want anybody. Like I'm like I don't want anyone looking at my junk. Right? Next thing you know, get your jock straps off, get in the center of the squad bay. 10, 9, and everyone's taking them off and throwing them out there. And now everyone's standing there with the dicks just standing there, all just like standing around. Right? And they're like, now this is where the training value comes in.
Don't you
too slow, phrase? Get them. They're like, too slow, get them and get them back on. Get back online.
Oh.
So guys are over. It's like this volcano, this mountain of jock straps, right? And we're all over there, and you're looking for yours.
Nope.
Yeah,
don't matter.
Comes over, bulldozes people. Boom.
You're hoping
jock
that
straps
as you threw it, you kept your eye on it the whole time. You're like, oh, I see.
You're trying to.
Nah,
and they're like,
mine exactly. I know exactly where it is in that pile.
Nobody said to get your own. Get one and get back online.
There it is.
So I get back online.
I knew that was coming.
And I'm pulling it up and I'm looking. I'm trying to read the number on the waistband that it's coming up, right? And it's this black guy, like at my like 10 o'clock across the squad bay. It's his number, and I'm like, oh. And it's all wet and sweaty, right? And I'm pulling it up, and I'm like, oh. And I'm like, oh my God, this black guy's sweaty jock strap is touching my stuff, my junk. And I'm like, oh no, right? And I'm sure that, and I'm sure they're thinking the same thing, right? Like, oh, I got that white kid's jock strap on, right? Like, and they're like, you got 10 seconds, get him off there in the center. We play, yes, right? We play this game for like 20, 30 minutes every day after PT, to the point where like,
gosh,
until the point where you wear almost everybody in the base.
I just want to throw that out there right now.
John, thank you for your service.
So this
John,
is what I appreciate.
Service, man.
This is what I appreciate about it.
Yeah.
Got to the point where I would take some other guy's jock strap and put it on my fucking head.
Who gives a shit?
I didn't skeeve anybody.
Yeah.
None of us, right?
Brothers.
And
That's it.
exactly. So I was like, you know what? If somebody's sitting here bleeding out, I'm not getting confused or have an obstacle because of the race or anything like this. It totally broke it down.
Yep.
Like now, there's probably other methods of doing that, right? But for me, at that time, I would never have thought to like file a complaint. I
Sure.
just thought that this is
nobody.
normal. This is
Oh, yeah.
right. And now as I'm older, I look back, I'm like, man, that was some funny shit.
Yeah.
But it
That is
but
funny.
it made sense because nobody cared.
Yeah.
It got to the point where it's like, look, we are going to erase your biases. We got to find a way to break down those biases. And yeah, that guy was awesome in my life. To this day, I remember him. I'm sure you guys have stories with your drill sergeants too, but
Oh, yeah.
but that was one incident, and I share that quite frequently. And people, it was like that would end people's careers.
Oh,
today.
yeah.
I'm not
Nowadays.
sure.
Oh
1000%.
yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it was effective. I don't know. It worked.
So, John, there's a story out there from that deployment, right?
Which one?
From your Iraq
which
deployment.
one?
Yeah, which one? There's a story from every one of your deployments, John. But there's this story about how you were in an old Iraqi weapons dump, right? And you come across some insurgents gathering bomb-making material, planting IEDs, just being general shitheads.
Yep.
Right? And it sounds like it was like, walk me through that. Are you guys patrolling in there? Are you?
Yeah. So I think it was part of our AO in our sector that we would we'd come around and we would patrol, mounted patrols in Humvees, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was all blown to shit. It was blown to shit. But there was weaponry and like blown up aircraft, and it was. I want to say like an old weapons dump, but there was ordnance in there. There was everything, and that's what they were doing. They were in there collecting up ordnance.
Yeah, they were stripping. They were stripping for materials.
Yep. And so we came in. I remember it clear as day. As we came in the dirt road and entered that somewhat compound, we could see like a donkey cart, and they were loading them up on the back of the donkey cart. And dudes started, they just scattered. They all started running, and guys shooting back at us. And it's like the Humvees could only go so far, so we had to dismount and chase them.
Yeah. So the way the story's written, right? Like, basically, John Melson starts sprinting after insurgents, taking them down while they are shooting at him with an AK. full, just like, well, I'm just gonna run after these dudes and just go tackle them.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. It's like I say, it's kind of funny. It wasn't funny, like I just look at it like doing my job. Yeah, but it was like being back home in Boston. I was chasing a drug dealer or something, right? Jump out of the cruiser, and I'm just hauling ass. Like, I'm gonna catch you, motherfucker, right? And, they stopped popping off rounds, and it was like, all right, well, that's what I get this for. Right?
So you're just running them down on foot, like, nah, don't need that gun truck. Like, can't get the gun truck in there. I'm just gonna run them down on foot. Fuck it.
Well,
and then you're with the Mississippi Guard at that point.
Yeah, it's a very small world that I ended up going back and serving as a first sergeant with.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so they gave you a little nickname, right? Okay, so it's written. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So they started calling you Crazy Yankee for chasing the fucking
Yankee
for foot chasing fucking insurgents down in Iraq.
Yeah, so the Yankee part was, like stupid me growing up in New England.
Sure.
I thought the North and South War was over a long time ago, right? But I love these guys. A lot of them are like family to me down there. When I got put with Mississippi, and when they started, saying I was a damn Yankee, I'm like, hey man, like, am I gonna have to watch over my shoulder when I go outside the fob here? Like, am I with a bunch of KKK dudes? Like, what did I end up in here? And I say that jokingly. They were good kids, and that stuck because, I was from up there, and being from Boston, what I did not want to do was be associated with a Yankee, because the Yankees, right? My arch rival, because I'm a Sox fan, right? I'm like, man. But it was funny with them because they used to constantly, whenever I would get on the radio, they'd be like, "Hey, last call on the station, please say again," and I'd have to repeat myself 3-4 times. And they'd be like, "Hey, whoever this calling is, you need to slow down." And I'm like, man, these guys, I'm speaking English and you can't understand me, man. So it was a joke. Like, they needed an interpreter to understand me because I just talk so fast.
They had to bring out the Boston interpreter for the
I
Mississippi
couldn't imagine
guard.
hearing that accent, that Boston accent, straight up on the net. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine. You hear that on the net. You're like, "Hey, last station, say again."
Yeah.
Wait, you came in a little broken.
But yeah, that was that day there. Like, everybody was just like, "What the hell?" And then the platoon sergeants, they
Now, is everybody else jumped unasked the trucks, or is it just John Melson, like full send, fucking going and running
And
dudes
what
down?
sparked you? Like, what decision making like, what sparked you? Like, what came through your head where you're just like, "Dude, I got to do this."
If we don't get them, they're gonna hurt somebody else.
Okay.
Right. I was
And
like,
that's understandable. Exactly.
I was like, all right, if they get away, they're gonna hurt another American.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not. It wasn't like it's my sole job, but it's like the army, our country wants me to stop them from hurting anyone else that we got here in uniform, right? So I'm gonna give it my all, right? And off I went, but they tried to get they brought the trucks around, and off I was going. But it's like a couple of the other guys, they dismounted, so it was like,
Where the fuck is John
I took
going?
off, and they're running to catch up to me, and it was just like, and then it hit me like, oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna be strung out here all by myself in a minute. I'm gonna be running into an ambush. But they were gone. Sandals were flying off their feet. They were right. I got all that. I got that. First time I'm over there, I'm running around. I got the IBA, all that shit on. I'm trying to run.
Yeah, I
I'm
never
like,
wore that shit.
Lucky you. Like,
I love that
Gucci,
Gucci group shit, man. Like,
yeah, right.
I saw those poor kids. I was like, God damn, that sucks.
And the craziest thing is, as bullets are going by, the machine guns going, I'm chasing after them. The fucking donkey, he's just sitting there.
Yeah.
In all the chaos, there's this fucking donkey hooked up. That's like, my life sucks right now. This is horrible.
Yeah. Vato, you got to remind me later, man. I got a great donkey story we'll do on a different show.
Oh, hell yeah. I love donkey stories, man. Donkey stories and camel stories.
Yeah.
I love donkey and camel stories.
I've got one of those too.
Because I got a great camel story and a Mark 19. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, there was one night we were out in sector, and the MIT team, the guys that were embedded with the Afghan army or the Iraqi army, they were doing a raid on the south side of the FOB, and we were just up on Route Martina patrolling that, and call came in. We got troops in contact. They need QRF. Well, my buddy from Boston, so there's two of us from Boston, he was with the MIT team. So they said they were pinned down, they were taking fire, and I was like, oh, fuck. And they were asking for anyone to assist. We were like, we're in sector, we're going to move over. And all I'm thinking is my buddy Carl. Like,
all right, guys. Hey, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching the journey of John Melson in this part 1. I'm also sad to say that we also split this up due to the length of the video and the incredible experience and knowledge and skill set and stories that Mad Dog Melson has to offer us. We split this up into part 2 as well. So click on the next video above. You cannot miss it. If you guys would like to hear the continuation of Mad Dog Melson and his story and his experiences and skill sets as well, in which I know we can all benefit from and partake from. But either way, guys, I want to thank you all. Please click the like button, click the subscribe if you haven't already. and we'll continue embarking this journey. Thank you all.